Sachinandana Gaura Hari, Gaura Hari, Gaura Hari, Jaya Sachinandana Gaura Hari, Gaura Hari, Gaura Hari, Jaya Sachinandana Gaura Hari, Jaya Vandeham Shri Guru Shijutaha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Gitam Tam Divam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Prijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam karoti vachalam bangam langayate girim Yat kripatamaham bande Shri Gurun dinataranam Vansha kalpatarubhyascha Kripa sindhubhya evacha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Namo Mahabhadanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandhu Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Vasudevai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha. Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pada Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Shri Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. And then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Shri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhara Goswami Maharaj and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Shri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. My Dandavat Pranams to all of my Sri Rupanuga Gaudiya Guru Varga, and my Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavis. So today we will complete the purport of the one of these days I'm going to have a desk built that is twice as big. Yes. And then my life will be perfect.
Not a tall order.
You'll have room for more things.
Yes. Then I'll get more things. Okay. So, let's see. Yes. We kind of left off yesterday where Srila Prabhupada was making the point about avoiding the association with Mayavadis who simply blaspheme Vaishnavas, devotees. So, he says, after that, Bhukti Kamis, who are interested in material happiness. Bhukti Mukti Kamis, who desire liberation by merging in the existence of the formless absolute Brahman, and Siddhi Kamis, who desire the perfection of mystic yoga practice, are classified as Ati Aharis. To associate with such persons is not at all desirable. Okay, now, what's a Ati Ahari? The verse under discussion, second shlok, begins with that word. Atyahara prayashascha prajalpa niyamagraha janasangascha lolyamcha Shadbir Bhakti Vinashyati. So what is an Atiyahara? Atiyahari.
He likes to eat and eat and eat. Probably over something.
Yeah, Ati means very much, excessive. Ati. And ahar means, one meaning is to eat, eating. Atiyahar, overeating, excessive eating. But it also means over collecting, right? Over collecting. And Prabhupada made the point in this purport. The whole problem in the whole world today is atiyahara on a mass scale. That's why there's wars, that's why there's all the problems that we have because of this tendency of the conditioned soul. One thing is, that hasn't been discussed here, but we'll hear it in the other commentaries, is that the excessive eating also means consuming through your other senses, not only your mouth. Your other senses, your eyes, your ears, your nose, touch. So that point will be made later by the other acharyas in their purports. But here, Srila Prabhupada, in relation to the fifth item, that means janasangas, the giving up the association of materialistic persons. And why is he mentioning these three categories? Aside from the Mayavadis, then he mentions Bhuktikamis, Muktikamis, and Siddhikamis.
Because they're desirous of something other than devotion.
Right. Yes. So, what is a Bhuktikami? Right, like yesterday we were discussing karmi. Karmis want what?
To taste the fruit, to enjoy more, to taste the fruits of their actions.
And their goal is?
To accumulate more.
And?
Enjoy more.
Elevationists.
Elevationists.
Remember? What's their goal? Their goal is not just to get more here, but after this life, also they want that. That's what they want. They're called Bhukti Kamis. A Kami means one who has desire for Bhukti. So there are three things: Bhukti, Mukti, Siddhi. There's actually a very nice verse, which I happen to have memorized amongst the few that I know, is when Mahaprabhu is talking to Sanatana Goswami. So he says, Bhukti Mukti Sakali Ashanta. Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakali Ashanta. Sakali means all. All of these three types of persons, Bhukti Kami, Mukti Kami, Siddhi Kami, Sakali Ashanta. What does that mean? Ashanta.
They're not peaceful.
Yep. They're always in anxiety. This is the nature of the conditioned souls who have these superfluous desires, which are not the actual dharma of the jiva. So because of their always being restless to get these things, and they strive towards that, they make their life goal aiming towards that, either material elevation or the liberation, merging into the absolute, or the perfection, siddhi, mystic powers, right? Mystic powers for what? For their own material enjoyment. Okay? So, all of these categories of persons are always ashanta, not shanta. They're full of anxiety. We see that Prahlad Maharaj also advised his father in the same way. Because he was not peaceful. He was so determined to gain more and more material enjoyment. And Prahlad Maharaj told his father, because you asked me what I learned in school, he learned it in the Narada Muni school, and he said, Tat sadhamanye asuravarya dehinam sada samud vigna diya asat, full of so many perplexities. Those persons, Prahlad Maharaj is telling, those persons who have accepted a material body, dehinam, which means everybody in the material universe. So, because they have this tendency to accept the asat, the temporary, as being permanent, asat grihat. So therefore, sada samud vigna, they always have so many problems, conditioned soul. Prahlad Maharaj sized it right up, right in the very beginning. And what should they do? This is the best knowledge that I've learned. Hitva atma patam griham andakupam. Hitva atma patam. Giving up the place where the atma is killed. Griham andakupam. The dark, deep well of materialistic household life to enjoy one's senses to the maximum. That is the place called atma patam. The place where the atma is killed. Griham andakupam. Dark well. Dark well. Why is considered to be a dark well? Why is that term used when referring to grihamedi, household life? That it's a andakupam. Anda means dark and kupa means well. Someone has fallen into a dark well.
Well, you can't get out yourself.
Mm-hmm.
In the light of Krishna reality, the beautiful is not shining in.
Right? They're trapped in this dark well. You know that example? That story, kind of like a story. I heard it from Gurudev, but I haven't checked to see. I think it's in the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur for this verse. But there's a parable that he tells. Once there was a man who was walking through a very attractive, beautiful forest, jungle. And he was admiring, as he was walking and strolling through the jungle, all the beautiful flowers and fruits and the trees and the beauty of nature and like that. But all of a sudden he heard a sound that was not very far from him. And what was that sound? There was a tiger licking his chops and looking at him. He turned around and saw the tiger. And what did he do? He ran. He ran as fast as he could possibly run. And he was very much desiring to find some place where he could find protection. If he climbs a tree, that tiger is going to get him anyway. Right? There's barely any place you can go in the middle of the forest. But he noticed, oh, there's an abandoned well. Right? Because some people, they just dig this well and then the grass covers it, straw. So, and he noticed, oh, there's also 2 branches. I can grab onto the 2 branches and I can lower myself into the well. So that's what he did. As fast as he could, he grabbed onto the branches and then he lowered himself down. But as he looked down into the well, what did he see? And what did he hear? He heard hissing sound. And he looked down and there was all completely full of snakes. So now he's hanging there by the two branches, and he's a few feet down from the opening, but he can't go any farther. And then all of a sudden the tiger's head comes at the top, roaring at him. What to do? What to do? So while he was in this state, all of a sudden he noticed that on the branch of one of those trees, there was a honey beehive, and honey was dripping down onto the branch, and from the branch, there were like little drops of honey falling in front of his face. You ever heard this pastime? You did, okay. So, in that condition, what did he do? He thought, oh, let me at least get some honey. So he, with an effort, he moved his face as close as he could and stuck out his tongue, and the honey dropped onto his tongue. And at the moment when that happened, he thought, oh, so sweet. So, but he noticed another thing, that on those two branches, there were two rats. One was white colored and one was black colored. And they were gnawing away at the branches. So, no matter how long he was going to continue trying to hold on, that was his predicament. No way out. And the tiger's head was there, and the snakes were below. So, what is the meaning of this?
So the rats represented day and night. Now they're taking the day and night, take the life away from the karma, from whatever.
That's right, gnawing away, gradually. And the lifespan is holding on to the branches. The branches themselves are representing that. What else?
Well, in the Russians, they send out their female spies to try to get information. They call them honeypots.
Mm-hmm.
It's the honey, I guess.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can. That lady would fit into that category. But the honey is actually the illusion of happiness in materialistic household life. You're in a dark well, and there's some little honey. What is that? Gurudev said, oh, love and affection from the family members. That's the honey. But that lady will also be put in the same category. Right? So, the tiger is representing inevitable death. It's inevitable. And the snakes at the bottom of the well, what are they representing?
Suffering, time.
Yeah, all of those things. Your karma, you know, the time is there from the rats, day and night, the branches. That's the lifespan. But there is inevitable old age, disease, death, everything.
Dangers.
Right. So, this is the analogy that is applied to what Prahlad Maharaj was talking about. Sada samudvigna diya asadgrahat. Hitvatma patam. So, this condition is actually us. We are that person who is wandering in the material world, trying to taste the fruits and the beauty and with our senses. But death is waiting, and death is chasing us. And we cannot avoid it. Maybe temporarily. We try to make ourselves comfortable in the dark well of materialistic household life, birth after birth after birth. That's the tendency, even in the animal species. So, hitvatma patam griham andakupam. One should give up. Hitva means to give up. So, Prahlad Maharaj is giving the advice, that person, this is the best knowledge of all that I've learned, is that person who is in a material body and in such and such condition, he should immediately give up that place where the Atma is killed and vanam gato yad harim ashrayeta. He should go to the forest, vanam, and take shelter of Hari. Harim ashrayeta. And what is the forest being referred to by Prahlad Maharaj? It is the Vrindavana, the forest of Vrindavan. That means to become a Krishna Bhakta. So, all of these persons that Mahaprabhu was mentioning to Sanatana Goswami, they are always Ashanta. And Hiranyakashipu is in that category. He had all mystic powers, he had all bhukti, even mukti he wanted, tried for it. His mukti was, I'll become immortal. I won't have to die. But the next best thing, he took all the other benedictions. So he was in anxiety. Hiranyakashipu was always in anxiety, always in fear, right? And so the next part of that verse, Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakali Ashanta, Krishna Bhakta Nishkam Atayeva Shanta. A Krishna Bhakta who is Nishkam, who has none of these material desires, he is Atayeva Shanta. He is always peaceful and undisturbed. So these categories, to associate with such persons is not at all desirable. Because who you associate with, you develop their qualities. And these are ati aharis, all of them, because they want to collect more material. Then he goes on, Prabhupada goes on and says, desires to expand the mind by perfecting mystic yoga, merging in the existence of Brahman, or attaining whimsical material prosperity, are all included within the category of greed, lolya. That's the last of the 6 items. Excessive longing and greed. So all attempts to acquire such material benefits or so-called spiritual advancement are impediments on the path of Krishna consciousness. So we have to make sure that that's not in our lives. Right? We may be living in our lives with various responsibilities, work responsibilities, etc. Right? We should try as much as possible to be in the association of Vaishnavas. But many Vaishnavas, they have jobs within the material sphere, but they are one-pointed. They never forget Krishna. They never forget what is the goal of their life. They don't intimately associate with their fellow workers and so forth. Intimately associate. No. Intimate association is only for Vaishnavas. If one has a family that are Vaishnavas, this is very favorable. So everything should be centered in Krishna. That's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's saying, Krishnara samsar koro chadi anachar. You know that song? There's Nadia Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. In the last verse, Gurudev has said, Bhaktivinoda Thakur put everything in that one verse. This is what we need to do. Lord Nityananda is instructing. Krishnara samsara koro, chadi anachara. Krishnara samsara means make your life completely for Krishna. Acting for Krishna. That means anukulyena Krishna Nushilanam. Constantly cultivating your activities, your life's desires, all the actions of your senses, your mind, your words, everything for Krishna. So Krishnara samsara, that you are living, your life in this world is for Krishna. Chadi anachar, and give up all unfavorable activities for bhakti. Anachar, it means bad behavior. Live your life properly, acting properly, controlling your senses and mind according to Upadeshamrita, and give up all those other adverse activities. Chadi means give up. Chadi anachar. Then it says, Jive doya Krishna nam sarva dharma sar. Jive doya means have mercy for all the jivas. Develop mercy for jivas. Jive doya Krishna nam, and constantly chant Krishna nam. Sarva dharma sar. This is the essence of all dharma. So, just like Rupa Goswami in the 8th verse, we will hear, he's saying this is the essence of all instructions. Okay. Now, Prabhupada is also making a comment about the world situation. He says that, lost the page. Okay. Modern warfare waged between capitalists and communists is due to their avoiding the advice of Srila Rupa Goswami regarding Atiyahara. So how is that they're avoiding the advice of Rupa Goswami?
Because they have a competition for resources more than they actually require to maintain their nations.
That's right. They always want to become more and more the controller, the master. They want to have full control, like we see is going on now. This nice little game that they're playing, where they want to control every resource, every living entity, like this. And basically, they want to become like Hiranyakashipu, right? Who wanted to control the whole universe. But unfortunately, they're very tiny little demons. They're going to be swept away, crushed by the mouth of death and time, and they'll be long gone in lower species of life for millions of lifetimes. Because they want to go against nature, and they want to take away the natural born freedom of the human society. That is their objective. So the demons are actually always moving in that direction. But now they think that they've really, everything's all nicely adjusted. It's inevitable. But what they don't know is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has a plan, which is inevitable. And the plan of his is that the demons are going to be destroyed. So my dear Mr. Capitalist or Communist who want to control everyone and everything, please know that in the very near future, you're going to be completely destroyed and crushed. And then you're going to have to suffer for millions of lives for your transgression of the laws of nature. You did not accept the advice of Srila Rupa Goswami regarding Atiyahara. You wanted to gain more, right? So that's not allowed, and you will be stopped. But play your game, go ahead. And there's already an arrangement by the Supreme Lord. So here, because back then it was like the world was in that position of the communists versus the capitalists, because Russia at that time and the surrounding countries, they were all under Marxist communists, Lenin, Stalin, the whole thing, right? And America was the land of the free, and the Western countries, right? And but Prabhupada is pointing out that both of these, the capitalists and the communists, they're more or less the same. And in fact, those who pretended to be communists were actually capitalists, which means that they want more and more wealth. So Prabhupada is saying that modern capitalists accumulate more wealth than necessary, and the communists, envious of their prosperity, want to nationalize all wealth and property, which they did. State is the owner. Nobody was allowed any private property. Did you know that? I don't know. Maybe the younger, you didn't really grow up in that environment. Did you know what was the situation? Well, what is the government? How a communist government rules? What are the rules of the communist government?
Basically, everyone is assigned a specific role. Everything is supposed to be shared equally amongst everybody.
And how do they apply that?
Strictly.
What they say is that the state is the owner of everything.
Confiscated.
And they actually confiscated everybody's wealth, and no one was allowed to own any house or apartment. No one was allowed to own that. Or car. They had a few possessions in like a refrigerator or this or that, but very sparse living they had at that time. And rationing of foods, and everything's being controlled by the government. So that's the opposite of the capitalist system. But in actuality, that was a plan to take over the resources by the capitalists. And it was a 70-year experiment, which when it ended, the party leaders of the Communist Party, who were way up on the top and had all special privileges and everything, they put all of these government industries in their name, in their personal name, and became multi-billionaires overnight. They basically robbed blind the entire country. So, so that's communism. And Prabhupada pointed out that this is basically the philosophy of Shudras, because they're telling everyone that everyone's equal. Classless society. You heard that before? They wanted a classless society, that the symbols of the hammer representing industry and the sickle representing agriculture. And anybody is a worker. They're forget the Russian term. Proletariat, but also comrade. They had, Tavarish. Oh, Tavarish, you are my Tavarish, you are my comrade, right? So they nationalized everything. And when communist fell, when the communist government fell, then of course there was a very period of unrest for about 10 years in the 1990s. Everything was haywire, and inflation, and so much robbing, because all the KGB became the mafia. They became the mafia. And then there was murders all over the place. I've talked with, like my translator, Snigdha Dasi. She grew up in Moscow in the 1990s and said it was hard to get food, And so, then Putin came in and, controlled things and also arrested some of those thieves. But anyway, that's a long story. So, modern capitalists accumulate more wealth than necessary, and the communists, envious of their prosperity, want to nationalize all wealth and property. Unfortunately, the communists do not know how to solve the problem of wealth and its distribution. Consequently, when the wealth of the capitalists falls into the hands of the communists, no solution results. Opposed to these two philosophies, the Krishna conscious idea all Krishna, and that's the truth. This is actually the truth. Thus, unless all wealth comes under the administration of Krishna, there can be no solution to the economic problem of mankind. Nothing can be solved by placing wealth in the hands of the communists or the capitalists. If a $100 bill is lying on the street, someone may pick it up and put it in his pocket. Such a man is not honest. Another man may see the money and decide to let it remain there, thinking that he should not touch another's property. Although this second man does not steal the money for his own purposes, he is unaware of its proper use. The third man, who sees the $100 bill, may pick it up, find the man who lost it, and deliver it to him. This man does not steal the money to spend for himself, nor does he neglect it and let it lie in the street. By taking it and delivering it to the man who has lost it, this man is both honest and wise. So simply transferring wealth from capitalists to communists cannot solve the problem of modern politics, for it has been demonstrated that when a communist gets money, he uses it for his own sense gratification. The wealth of the world actually belongs to Krishna, and every living entity, man and animal, has the birthright to use God's property for his maintenance. When one takes more than his maintenance requires, be he a capitalist or a communist, he is a thief, and as such, he is liable to be punished by the laws of nature. So the wealth of the world should be used for the welfare of all living entities, for that is the plan of Mother Nature. Everyone has the right to live by utilizing the wealth of the Lord. When people learn the art of scientifically utilizing the Lord's property, they will no longer encroach upon one another's rights. Then an ideal society can be formed. The basic principle for such a spiritual society is stated in the first mantra of Sri Upanishad. What's that one, my dear older devotees? Together. Isharamidam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bunjita ma gridha kasyasvidhanam. See, we all know that because when we were little, we learned it all. Every day, actually, we would recite, 20 mantras in Sri Upanishad, something like that. Okay, what does that mean? Ishavasya sarvam.
Oh,
everything is owned by the Lord.
like Isha.
Isha avasya. Ishavasya. Yes. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. Yat kincha jagatyam jagat. That means whatever there is in the jagat, in the universe. Tena tyaktena bunjita. So he says one should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota. Right? They are set aside. Who set them aside?
Nature. Krishna's
Yes.
nature.
The controller. He's provided. I mean, I'm a little bit astonished when I see everything getting all dry, but yet all the living entities, like the flock of wild turkeys, they just like go in a flock, they move from, and they're just eating. Like nature has supplied what the food that they need. All the insects are crawling here and they're all getting, all the birds. Only problem is created by the human beings. So, he says, the Ishopanishad is saying, one should accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. Like the person who finds the $100 bill, right? So, ma gridha kasyas vidhanam.
Where's the offering? Someone make the offering?
No, there's nothing cooking. Because Jai Govinda Prabhu asked me, he said he could add enough extra. He didn't. He told me not to cook.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
No need.
So when
I made an offering of fruits and sweets at
Right.
5:30.
Okay, good. Yes?
So when he's talking about the administration of Krishna, apart from nature providing for all the animals in the wild, does it also include Brahminical culture who know how to administrate resources and have them distributed properly?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the arrangement. That's the natural arrangement. That's why there's a natural division of 4 different, dharmas, varnashram dharma, and ashramas. That's the natural division, which will always be there. It's there now. People have certain qualities according to the modes of nature. But at that time, everything was so beautifully, perfectly administrated, and there was never, ever any problem with shortage. Nowhere. No one would be starving, nothing. And as we've read in Bhagavatam, Prabhupada's beautiful purports in the first canto, describing how the whole nature, because everybody was God conscious, and the Kshatriyas administrated under the direction of the Brahmanas, and everybody had to be engaged in their occupational duty, and they had to avoid the sinful activities. So the nature, the demigods, nature, the earth itself was responding, because the earth is a living thing, right? And it's the actual extension of the body of the goddess of the earth planet. So the earth within it, like, by the way, nobody knows. The scientists, they've never dug deeper than something like, I think it's like 15 miles or 20 miles.
Yeah, that's generous.
That's the deepest they've dug. So they have absolutely no knowledge about what is underneath, what layers. They just speculate. But everything that's needed is there underneath the earth's surface. And like, for example, when the Kali Yuga ends, Satya Yuga begins, then what happens? The earth pushes up to the surface all the necessary seeds, all the beautiful fruit trees, the whole luxurious atmosphere of Satya Yuga immediately. It happens automatically. Just like we have here, after the winter comes the spring. And automatically, it all comes. So that's the laws and the arrangements of nature. But as Dharma diminishes, then the proper administration diminishes. I was just reading the first chapter of the first canto today, kind of brushing up on the questions by the sages and so forth. And, in those purports, Prabhupada is pointing this out, how difficult situation in Kali Yuga, because there is not proper administration of the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas and so forth. So the Sri Upanishad is the directive. The Sri Upanishad is directly telling that Isha Upanishad, Isha Vasyam, that supreme controller, He is the owner of everything. So when people become God conscious, then that tendency of atyahara, that I want more for me, that gets taken care of. That very nicely. People become peaceful and they're satisfied. And some persons have lots of wealth, like Vaishyas. Prabhupada was talking about how very wealthy Nanda Maharaj was, 900,000 cows, and all the milk products and trading, and they're very, very opulent, you know. So in the human society, people are not lacking at all. When the proper God-conscious administration is there, God-conscious administration means understanding it all belongs to the Lord. Even the Kshatriya kings who were emperors of the entire world, they were not attached that this is mine. Their only position was to rule over in a godly fashion for the service of the Lord and all living beings and protecting them like this. So we haven't seen that in our lives because we happen to be in the Kali Yuga. So there's so many demoniac political forces and have caused all these conditions, right? So Krishna-conscious devotees know very well that this material world is designed by the complete arrangement of the Lord to fulfill all the necessities of life for all living beings without their having to encroach upon the life or rights of one another. So I'm just going to allude a little bit again to what I was saying before. This is what's going on. Encroachment upon the rights of other living beings. So there will be very great rebellion, and there will be war, and the demons will be defeated. But if everyone was living according to the Lord's arrangement, there would be no need for all of that. So this complete arrangement affords the proper quota of wealth for everyone according to his real needs. And thus everyone may live peacefully according to the principle of plain living and high thinking. We used to hear that all the time. Oh, simple living and high thinking, Prabhu. Simple living, high thinking. Plain living. Prabhupada uses the term plain living. It doesn't have to be elaborate. Just like we devotees were living up here. Your parents came up here, got a piece of land, and everyone's living peacefully, right? Everybody's doing their work. Of course, it's a little bit different than it was in the Vedic times because people would have cows. Everyone would have a cow. They'd also have Shudra workers who they considered part of their own family, who did all these activities, the Vaishyas.
They had lots of cows. Nanda Gopal, when all the kids were out there
Well,
milking.
yeah.
When
Past tense. Yeah, that's true. You know, didn't do much farming. But, you know, because it's an artificial arrangement right now where people are living up on a hill, hour-and-a-half drive at breakneck speeds to get down to a shop in the city, you know, this is artificial. This will all change. Over time, this is going to change. Prophet has predicted. So, yes. Unfortunately, materialists who have neither faith in the plan of God nor any aspiration for higher spiritual development, they misuse their God-given intelligence only to augment their material possessions. How do we describe augmenting in this context? They're using their God-given intelligence only to augment their material possessions.
Increase.
Augment also can mean increase.
Increase, improve.
Okay. They devise many systems, such as capitalism and materialistic communism, to advance their material position. They are not interested in the laws of God or in a higher goal. Always anxious to fulfill their unlimited desires for sense gratification, they are conspicuous by their ability to exploit their fellow living beings. How, Prabhupada? Can just put it all together. When human society gives up these elementary faults enumerated by Srila Rupa Goswami, Atyahara, etc., then all enmity will cease between men and animals, capitalists and communists, and so forth. In addition, all problems of economic and political maladjustment and instability will be solved. This pure consciousness is awakened by the proper spiritual education and practice offered scientifically by the Krishna consciousness movement. And here's the last little paragraph. This Krishna consciousness movement offers a spiritual community that can bring about a peaceful condition in the world. Every intelligent man should purify his consciousness and rid himself of the above-mentioned 6 hindrances to devotional service by taking wholehearted shelter of this Krishna consciousness movement. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Oh, wonderful. I mean, this is a quite different kind of purport than we'll be reading of the other 3 acharyas, because, Prabhupada was applying this to the massive people, to the whole world situation. Ingenious. Oh, he pointed this out, huh?
Revolutionary.
Yeah, revolutionary. Yes, I mean, that was Prabhupada's, his whole vision was world vision, universal vision, right? And that's why he was able to accomplish what he did. So there are many, stages coming in the Krishna consciousness movement, and many great pure Vaishnavas are also going to be descending. Some have already descended, and Mahaprabhu is arranging everything. So what we have seen, what we've grown up with, in the 20th century, it's all artificial civilization, and because of that, even the artificial economic financial system, everything, and tons and tons of atyahara. We know the consumerist society, how that became, and because those who have the wealth and they're atyaharis, they want to just increase more and more and become more and more powerful. So they just kept on pumping out more and more unnecessary things for the people, right? And indebting them, causing them to be in constant debt and constant anxiety and working long hours just to pay for the roof over your head and so forth. So that whole, books are already written about it, but the whole artificial construct, Mahaprabhu has a plan to change that. That's why Srila Prabhupada talked about this in 1975 on his morning walks in Mayapur. And he was talking about how the war will come and all the different changes that will take place. And we also have heard recently the astrological, predictions of Nrsimha Rao and others, But the whole economic system is being changed now. And actually this whole lockdown thing is intentional because they want to shift everything to a digital currency. That's actually their objective. That's why they're keeping it going on. So, but the thing is that they want to control everything in a whole nother stage of economic manipulation. But there's forces that are now not going to allow that. There's actually good and bad forces. And there will be a struggle and there will be war. But the outcome of that will be very, very auspicious. Prabhupada was pointing this out. And the artificial civilization, which is not maintainable over the long term, and which is not really good for the peace and the happiness of the human society, that will shift. And people, according to the astrological prediction especially, the people will go back to nature and they'll find their identification with God. You know, it's already starting to happen now, but in the end, that will become the main desire of the human society, to live close to nature again and like that. So there are good times coming. Difficult struggle at the present time. Ultimately, it's all under Krishna's control, Mahaprabhu's control, and the sinful activities that have mounted like gigantic Himalayan mountains of sinful activities, they will be relieved by suffering and the tremendous loss of human life that will go on. So we should be living according to what we just read here, Upadeshamrita, and cultivating bhakti and Krishna consciousness. Ishavasya sarvam. Just being satisfied with the necessities so that we can live our lives in Krishna consciousness. All right, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Shri Upadeshamrita.
As far as 100 years ago they were preaching, for now, let our vice be our virtue, and let our virtue be our vice.
Yes. Of his throne, he actually controlled the forces of karma, and persons who he reversed the laws of karma. That if you do bad, you get a good result, and if you do good, you get a bad result. Yeah, you heard that? Yeah. So you're going to do the arti? Yeah. Okay. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Govinda Jiva Ki Jai, Shri Gaura Arti Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Jiva Arti Ki Jai. Jai Gaur Premanande, Anachara Kalpajara Vishta, Kripa Sindhi Devi Vajapati Tanam Bhagavati. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, devotees, Vaishnavas, Guru Parampara, and all. You're going to play the... would you like to sing the Artik song?
Anybody else would like to? It's good, but otherwise I can't.
Okay, yeah. Why don't you? We shift off, as you see. Yeah.
Viva Jaya Jaya Gaura Chande, Arati Keshoba. Jaya Jaya Gaura Chande, Arati Keshoba. Janavi Katha Vane, Jagmana Loba.
Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Niti Lila Prabhupada Vishnu Parasparasati Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Niti Lila Prabhupada Vishnu Parasparasati Srimad Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Niti Lila Prabhupada Vishnu Parasparasati Srimad Bhakti Pratyana Kesha Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nityalila Prabhupada Vishnu Parasparasati Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nityalila Prabhupada Param Bhagavad Prabhar Srila Gaura Kishore Das Prabhupada. Nitya Pravishta Shri Shri Thakur Ki Jai. Nitya Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannath Das Balaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Gauriya Vedanta Acharya Shri Baladev Vibhushan Prabhu Ki Jai. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai. Srila Narasam Srinivas Shamananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Sri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Sri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Sri Swarup Damodar Rai Ramananda Ali Sri Gaur Karsha Vrindi Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Premse Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai. Sri Antadvip Mayapur Sri Mantadvip Godrumadvip Mantadvip Koladvip Ritudvip Dhammadvip Modrumadvip Rudra Vipak Atmaka Shri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Govardhan Radhasa Ramatmak Shri Braja Mandala Ki Jai. Shri Radhakund Shamakund Ganga Jamuna Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Srimati Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Darshana Chakra Jiv. Shri Chatra Mandala Ki Jai. Sarva Vigna Vinashkari Shri Nrsimhadev Ki Jai. Bhakta Prabha Shri Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai. Charidam Ki Jai. Chari Sampradaya Ki Jai. Shri Akaramata Raja Shri Chaitanya Mata Ki Jai. Shri Keshavji Gauriya Mata Vatasa Padmanabha Sanuha Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Shri Hari Nam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Samagata Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Gaur. Namaste Narasinghaya
Namo Namo.
Shri Krishna Prayasi Namo Namo. Jaya Radha Krishna Nitya Seva Jaya Vidasi Keto Manasana Shri Krishna Seva Kripa Kori Kora
Chai Namo Namah. You lead nice kirtan.
Oh, I
Yeah.
prefer not to.
But you do, you lead very nice kirtan.
Let's do that more often.
Yeah. We'll leave it a little bit